Is it live? Oh, okay. Sorry. It's live. So today we're going to get started on painting some oranges on a jar. These are the leftover oranges from yesterday, and they're super dried up and kind of gross. So my goal is to make them look like they're fresh and juicy, but I just didn't want them to go to waste. And I have them in this blue jar, which was also from a failed demo attempt. So hitting a few birds with one stone here. I have it as a square setup. This is a Arches Coldpress Watercolor paper. If you want to switch the cameras over, but it is 140 pound and it's a block, so I use these almost exclusively. So I have a viewfinder as well, and I'm going to be setting this up for the square format and then just kind of creating like an invisible grid and using those measurements on my square. So I'm finding the center point right now and kind of looking at the negative space around the objects. So right now the orange meets about halfway in the paper, goes up, and then the bottom kind of is over here. The center of the glass it's slightly off center, so it's going to be about here. And then I'm looking for the bottom of the glass, which is going to be about here, I think. So it's always hard to get this exactly right. Something like that. And then going back to the viewfinder, I think this orange, it doesn't quite hit the glass, and it's just under the center line, I would say. Which camera? Oh, sorry, our setup isn't working. 1 second. Yeah. So we have a new setup that we're trying to do, so I can do multiple camera angles, which is why there might be some more technical difficulties in this one, but it shouldn't be as bad as last night. So hopefully we can get some different camera angles once we get it going. Oh, yeah, they can't even see the... Oh, sorry, you can't even see the painting. One second. Okay, so now that we have this all sketched in that you can't even see before, you kind of get the idea. I keep it pretty rough. I don't want the sketch to be too pretty because I'm just going to paint over everything. Doesn't need to be exact either. Here's my viewfinder that I was talking about, and it has different ratios here, 8 by 10. I can do this, And I find this really useful. And I used to use my hands just like this, and I still do that sometimes, but I had a lot of people kind of complaining in my workshop class that I taught. So this is actually really handy and a little less confusing than using your hands. So now that I have it all sketched in, what I'm going to do is use my larger brush. This is a 3/4 inch flat. How's this streaming going? It looks like it's just stuck on. Oh, John's trying to figure out the. Maybe we should just take this off the air. All right, anyway, I'm going to keep going. He's trying to get it so that you can see the subject on the screen as well, which would be handy. So I'm starting with some really bright oranges and yellows, and it's pretty watery at this point. I want to let the white of the paper do the work, so I'm just going to kind of block this in right now. Actually, let's just cover it all. Since it's pretty watered down, it doesn't matter too much. I can paint over it without much worries. There's some of this teal from the glass coming through on this side. It's creating kind of a greenish look. And then on this side is a darker orange. So I have a few light sources, which is always important to note. I have a warm light source coming in from this side, and then a cool light source for my paper, but it is reflecting a little bit onto the subject. And then behind me is kind of natural light. So there's quite a few things going on, and you'll see maybe a few different shadows, but overall the strongest light is going to be the warm light. Let's block in some of this bright blue that I see. Again, I'm keeping this very watery. Kind of doing a blend of this turquoise and an ultramarine blue, which are a warm and cool blue. And I have to work kind of quick because the ice is melting. It's already melted once and I had to restart. I think this orange might be too big. So something like this. And the whole, even the ice is casted as a little bit of a blue because it's in this blue jar. So I'm just going to cover it all up like that. My goal is to cover all the white of the paper. Let's just do up here too. And it actually goes in over here. I don't mind if it's kind of bleeding out a bit because actually this orange does have like a nice glow on the object, so it's not too bad. I have a black board as my backdrop because I wanted to separate the ground and create kind of a fake background. So I am going to use this black paint And then also very watered down, kind of block in the background. I'm going to warm it up a bit with some burnt sienna. I thought this black background would be nice because it helps bring out these bright colors really well. It's a nice contrast to them. I'm squinting to get the shape of the jar, just to kind of block it in so I can not be so confused as to what's what. Whoa, I almost dipped my paint, my brush into the subject jar, which would have been a disaster. It's the danger of having any open containers around. It's so automatic. And I have this set to be just under the halfway point because I don't want it to be directly halfway. Makes it a little more interesting when everything's not centered. My husband is also manning the camera setup, so he's the one doing the switching back and forth between my view and then the painting view. Eventually, I'd like to be able to learn to do it myself, but it's kind of complicated and it's going to take some time to figure that out. So this line is really crooked. And try to lift some of this up. You can use your brush as a guide, a straight guide. That's good enough. Let's get some of these shadow colors in. I'm using a ultramarine blue. My palette's kind of wiggling around a bit. An ultramarine blue. And then I'm going to put a bit of this turquoise in as well. Actually, I want to put a little bit of yellow. Yeah, too much. This yellow is super strong. It's a cadmium-free lemon yellow. So it's really potent. And then I'm kind of looking and seeing how the shadow colors are changing. I think they get a little bit cooler towards the outside and then warmer closer to the jar. But I'll be adjusting that later. Oh, thanks. I'm finally seeing the comments. All right, so I'm gonna try to get some of the tabletop that's in the light, which is going to be a warmer, just a bit of this yellow deep, which is my warmer yellow, skews more towards orange. And I'm carefully blocking this in. There's going to be some bleeding of the color just because I'm working a little bit of wet on wet at the at the time, but that's okay. I'm going to probably be going over that all again, so no big deal. I'm going to go down to a smaller brush, and I want to get this darker shadow here, just to fill that in a bit. It's a kind of an orangey, it's reflecting the actual orange. Mixed it in with a little bit of ultramarine blue. And then something like this. And we're going to go for it's kind of a turquoisey shadow here. Just adding a bit of darkness to ground everything. And this shadow is kind of carried over here on this side. Oh, thank you, DG Draws. I appreciate that. Hopefully we can really figure out this whole streaming stuff. It's pretty complicated. I'm just kind of getting some of these lighter colors that I'm seeing, especially of the ice since it's melting at the moment. I look at everything as shapes, so I'm not seeing individual ice cubes. I'm kind of just seeing blocks of color and bits of light. And I've been kind of scatterbrained lately, so you'll see me switching kind of all over the place between subjects. So I'm working on the orange right now. And this orange is almost all in shadow. So the pith is kind of a greenish tone. And the pith is the white of the orange. I learned that this year and I've been saying that nonstop. Okay, so we got that there. I'm going to get some definition of this one over here, which is mostly in shadow. Kind of falls into light at this section here. Let's get some of these lighter colors in. So I want to get this part that's hitting the light just carefully, and it's thicker paint because I'm more sure about where it's going to go. With gouache, it's hard to work over thick paint. So if you're putting on thick paint, you want to be sure that it's where you want it. And this shadow of this pith is quite blue because it's reflecting the color from the glass. Okay. I want to get some of this darker color of the jar, which it's pretty much a combination of these cool ultramarine blues and then a blend of warmer blues. So I'm blocking these in. Try not to get too caught up in all the details of these tops of the jars. It can be really confusing if you're paying too close of attention. trying to get each, swirl. And then I'm just trying to get some of these darker parts now. They might not be as dark as you think, though. Let's get in these ice cubes. And it's important to kind of figure out what you're seeing and why it's there. So these darker parts are actually the black background coming through. It kind of reverses the image in the water. And it's actually getting more orange as we get on this side because there's a bit of orange reflection coming from this orange here. And we'll get some of this blue over here. So notice I painted the negative shape around the ice cubes. I use a lot of negative shapes in my paintings, and that's how I can kind of get away with doing less super accurate drawings at the beginning because I'm just thinking of shapes and not lines. But it could also be why some of my drawings are a little bit off. I'm not perfect. And we're getting some of this. So as it turns on this side, you want to have the curve fall the other direction. I know this is kind of off. Hopefully I can fix this when I go over the black background again. I'm going to scratch out this black mark as well. So let's get some of these shadows of the oranges. Squint, squint, squint. You want to make sure you get the values correct. And the rind kind of goes into the jar like that. It's such a thin rind. You really don't need to paint every bit of it. Adding a little bit of red. The red kind of darkens it and it looks a little more warm on this side anyway. But it's important to pay attention to the values because there is a bit of reflected light coming up from the table onto this rind. So this is actually lighter than the shadow. So these little details make a big difference. And we're going up here, getting this one. And it's the same thing. There's still some reflected light from the table. And this one is a little more desaturated. So I'm adding a little bit of ultramarine blue, which is the complement of the orange, and it's kind of darkening and desaturating it. I'm using this turquoise a lot, which isn't a standard on my palette, but sometimes these really bright blues are hard to get with just the usual palette. And it's not necessary, but hold on, I'm trying to find this angle of the line. There we go. Kind of taking a wet brush to lift up some of this paint so I'm not fighting with it later. And let's get some of these shadow parts. it's important to kind of establish the lighting and the direction of the shadows if you're working from life especially. It's kind of a muddy looking orange. I might have to work on this and pull up the saturation a bit down the line, but it's kind of a struggle to figure out because I want to push them back. So we're going to go a little bit darker and then lift up if we have to. It's weird because it's getting this reflected light from the jar, and the teal onto the orange makes it really muddy looking. I'm going to water down the paint a little bit. That's looking a little bit too dull. It is pretty dark. I think it would be ideal if I were using fresh oranges instead of these really old ones from last night. There we go, that's looking better. And then I want to get this one over here. We're going to work on this orange, which has a darker bit at the top, and then as it goes towards the bottom, it gets really light and pretty. And this is my favorite part of the whole composition. So, oops, I really want to focus on maintaining that kind of glow through the orange. Okay, and I need to work really quick now because the ice is super melting. I want to get some of these brighter colors that I'm finding in the background around the ice. Squinting. I love this teal, or this turquoise color. It's really pretty. And it's from Holbein. There are lots of very subtle shifts. Okay. I want to get this shadow color. Actually, let me work on the ice a little bit more since I know it's melting and I really need to get this down before it goes away. It gets kind of a blurry edge because around the ice cubes they're getting softer. You can see some of the orange through on this side. Okay, still gonna work on this ice. It's not quite pure turquoise. It's a little bit muddy. So I'm bringing in some of this orange. And the parts where the ice is the thickest is actually a cooler or more like ultramarine color. So kind of blending the cool and warms gives it that icy feel. That's our cat, Kuda. He's super annoying. Now he's coming out. He might make an appearance. So I'm working really quick right now. Hi, Kuda. See, my palette is really quite a mess. I want to cover up all these white spots. There are some lighter areas in the ice cubes. If I squint, it's like really subtle. And we're going to bring this turquoise all the way down. Some things are probably changing. It's part of the fun of painting from life. I always get kind of quiet when I'm in hyper focus mode, so I apologize. If anyone has any questions, by the way, I do have the comments up, and I will be trying to look at them. No promises, but anything I don't get to, I'll try to answer in the comments. I want to get these little reflections going on. I think trying to figure out why this is kind of pinkish. Could be because my shirt's this maroon color. And this is going up a little bit. There's some orange reflecting up here. I want to get this dark blue that's at the bottom of the jar. And I see a little more space opening up between the ice cubes, which I kind of like. They generally say not to chase these kinds of things as it's changing, but I do. I heard a sigh. I feel like there's a dog around here. Okay, so I think we have the ice pretty set. Am I mostly self-taught with painting, or did I study it all while studying illustration? So I went to school back in 2001 and 2005 at the Rinling College of Art and Design. And back then, the digital classes were very few. We had maybe one class, and I didn't learn too much in those classes. A lot of the digital stuff went way over my head at the time, and I picked up most of my digital education from work experience kind of being thrown into the fire. Um, so I did a lot of oil painting back in college, and I did learn, some stuff about painting from life, but I feel like I learned most of my stuff on my own in the past couple of years because I did have about a decade off where I was just doing digital art. So getting back into traditional stuff and learning gouache because I didn't even know what gouache was back in college. Um, and painting from life has been really, really life changing. I feel like I see everything differently now. So I am kind of going over again with the background and making this background nice and dark is really going to help the orange and the jar pop. So everything is relative to each other. That's how you get these bright colors to really shine. It's not a special paint so much as just realizing what the complements are and how to use values to achieve a brightness to another color. And doing these backgrounds over and over again. I do like a lot of the natural blooming and stuff with the watercolors, but I like to be able to use these backgrounds to kind of cut out shapes. So like what I'm doing now, I'm kind of defining the jar by cutting out around it. And fixing any wonky shapes that way. I want to make sure that the line is kind of lining up. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it would be distracting if it wasn't. So I know the jar is kind of tilting this way, but honestly, that's what I'm seeing. I think it's because my table is lifted up a bit. So I'm just going to leave it. People can complain to me if they want. Let's warm up this black. But yeah, I do feel like you can learn a lot on your own. And I don't think anyone is purely self-taught. There's definitely others out there that have influenced me and inspired me. So I don't want to, discredit any of them. But I do feel like I learned a lot just by constantly having things to focus on and goals to get better. So I would think I want to be better at composition. I start really focusing on those things. Or better at color. It's just kind of a form of meditation and being able to zone in on those things. All right. I want to get some of these colors in the oranges that I'm seeing. So there's a lot of fun colors here. There's this really bright kind of orangey, greeny yellow. And then it's a little bit over here as well. The stuff that's hitting the light. It's a little more blue into this. And then towards the top, it's kind of like a lighter blue. I'm using this turquoise quite a bit. So coming through the jar is some of this turquoise light. And it's still in shadow, so it's kind of dark, but it is lighter than the shadow. There we go. Now when I squint, I want to see where the lightest lights are, which would be kind of right at the top of this orange is getting hit by light. And then there's a few little accents. And I see some stuff happening within the jar, kind of where these ice cubes are right at the top of the water or kind of shining above the water. There's some ice cubes that are getting hit by the light. So, these are also changing over time, which is why I'm kind of making some changes as I go along. Let's see here. I'm going to get some of this orange again. It's very dark at the very bottom. Kind of, as it goes up, gets lighter. It's funny, I can actually see on the YouTube streaming the difference between the photo and my painting. So I made the painting jar a lot thinner, and um, it's not exactly right. Debating if I want to make any changes to that. I might extend out slightly, just a hair. This water line is really crisp. And it kind of, it's not just one steady color. There's some darker spots and lighter spots. Back here, there's also a little bit of an increase in contrast. And I think some of these ice cubes are getting some pretty neat blues reflecting from the jar. So I'm going to do some of these here, just a couple. Okay. Getting this orange in. And it's kind of curling. I don't know if I want to have it kind of curl over. I think that's more of a age issue of this particular orange because it's kind of folding in. And I wanted to make it appear more fresh than it actually is. So I'll be brightening up some things. Okay, I want to work on these shadows a little bit under the oranges. Trying to figure out exactly what colors I'm seeing. It's kind of purpley with like little bits of blue. And as you get closer to the oranges, it gets darker. And as it gets farther away, it's going to get lighter and less sharp. So I always try to soften the edges of my shadows. I don't want them to be super sharp. I'm going to darken it a little bit and kind of show the form better. Same over here. And I'm going to soften this edge as well. And the thing I like about this shadow color, and I did it kind of wrong, it's actually more of an ultramarine kind of purpley blue. So I'm cleaning my palette. I always spray it down and then just wipe off the paint. And I do this if I want like a really pure color. Like if I'm working on a white table, like I am. And the colors are very subtle. So I want to mix maybe a touch of this turquoise. See how this looks. I always try to mix it pretty well too. That looks pretty good, I think. Maybe a bit of orange. The colors do kind of shift around. Like there's more orange here, directly under the orange. Kind of glows out, which is nice. I think that's happening a little bit over here too, so let's do that. And I'm going back to this blue. I'm going to work in this shadow here. Okay, now let's get some of this table again. The paint is much thicker. Just adding a bit of this orange and yellow. Watering it down a bit. You want a good consistency here. And the shadows are sharper towards the object and softer out. All right, we're getting it's pretty orange over here, this tiny little bit. It's actually pretty orange over here too. Okay, so we have everything pretty much down, and now I'm just kind of fixing things up as I see what needs to be fixed, or any little details that should be added. Sometimes I use a burnt sienna as my orange color. I'm always squinting, seeing the values. Haven't really been using this blue at all, which is my indigo blue. I add some little juicy marks on these oranges just to give a little bit of life to them. Thank you. Trying to find all these little reflections that I'm seeing. Any bits of orange. Oh, I have to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. Just adding a little more dimension, some darker spots to give the feel of the pulp. Then I want to kind of have a reflected light onto this orange from the table. I got the palette. It's called the Mugello palette, and this is from Amazon. But you can get it pretty much anywhere, and there's a bunch of kind of copycats out there that probably work just as fine. That's kind of naturally what I do. I don't know if I should be doing that. It's probably not great for me, but especially with the um, recent plum painting that I did, it was really useful to get the right textures that I wanted. Everything I learned with gouache, or almost everything, I kind of figured out on my own from just painting every day with it. I remember when I first started using it, I was so frustrated because it dried so fast and I couldn't get like an even color. It's really annoying. All right, I want to get a few little highlights. Excuse my sniffles, sorry. Oh, you're welcome. Always happy to help. All right. Let's see here. I think I want to get this background. Let me blow my nose real quick. Sorry. Okay, I'm back. I just want to do a few more little things and then I'm going to call it done. Getting some of these brighter highlights. Okay, I'm using this black again. I'm going over everything just because I tend to splash bits of color, and you probably can't see it on the camera, but I don't like seeing that. One second. I don't know why, but I'm suddenly hearing my voice. Okay, that should be better. Voice.
Oh, you know what? You're connected to the damn computer. That's why. I thought I lost audio. They're not hearing it, don't worry.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Swear I'm okay.
okay.
My allergies have been acting up. Here we go. Just covering up all this again. Oh, thank you, Holly. I'm glad you like it. And I normally like to work more with natural light, but I'm having to make some compromises with this new setup. Although I don't think we've been utilizing it fully, since I think I've only been seeing one angle of the camera so far. Have you been changing the camera, John? What's the point of doing this?
I don't know when to change it. I've been changing it a little bit, but it's mostly about your palette, isn't it? In the picture.
Yeah. All right. Oh, we'll figure that out.
It's just you're not looking at the camera. It's hard to know when to switch it.
I always try to push the contrast of everything a little bit. And getting some of this darkness here. Just trying to push everything just a bit. I like being able to see the screen and kind of see my painting at a distance. I can see what's wrong with it. So far, I think it looks all right. Definitely feel free to ask any questions. I'm happy to answer them right now. This live session is a little bit of a stealth one. I haven't been announcing them because it's been kind of a crapshoot lately as we figure out this whole streaming thing. I am going to be making a Patreon soon, which I'm kind of excited about. But I'm just trying to think out the logistics. If you have any suggestions of what you want to see or any specific rewards that would be useful, please send them to me. You can either email me or find me on Instagram or Facebook. But my email is HeatherIhnArt@gmail.com, and I'm really curious to hear what you would like to see. I want to make it as useful and uh, rewarding to you as possible. How do I keep gouache from drying in my palette, which is a pretty common question. Meaning that a lot of people have this issue. So I usually take a spray bottle and I spray it down so that there's a good amount of water in each well. And this is going to help, I close it up and it's an airtight palette and it helps kind of re-wet everything. If you don't paint every day, that can be kind of a problem. I know a lot of people have issues with mold, and I think because I don't paint every day, that or because that I do paint every day, and I'm constantly refreshing the paint, that's why I don't have that problem personally. So, I can't promise that this is the best solution for everyone, but it works really well for what I do and how often I paint. All right, let's see. I want to clean up this around the orange just a little bit. I pretty much used all that turquoise that I had up there. Oh yeah, sure. We're trying to set up a pancake cam if he's still. Do I use photo references or do I paint straight from life? I paint straight from life almost exclusively. There are some very rare cases that I have used photos or videos, but for the most part, I just really enjoy painting from life. And whenever I paint from a photo, it just doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel as exciting to me. Oh, there you can see Pancake. John's trying to set up his camera. He's been sleeping. Lazy dog. He was a terror today, chasing after the cats. I wish I could show you my still life right now because it's actually, the ice has almost completely melted. What's funny is I asked on Instagram if people had suggestions for the Patreon, and a lot of people wanted um, photo references. So I might include that. I guess it's okay. Do you want me to? Oh yeah, that's Pancake. We have two dogs. We have Coconut and Pancake. And everyone always thinks that the other one is the other one because we named Coconut because she's brown, like the outside of a coconut, and he is white, so people are thinking white coconut, the inside. I think I'm pretty much done. Kind of looking around, seeing what else I can do. John has another camera here, and he wants to show you the still life setup. Oh, there it goes. So you can see the ice is pretty much all melted compared to what it was. Want to get a good close-up? Here's a close-up of the painting. Close-up of the still life. That's good. Thank you. And I think we're done. I'm going to sign this, and how I usually sign it is I pick kind of a light color. I want it to be close in value to the color that it's going to be on because I don't want it to stick out. So I'm choosing kind of this light blue, and I'm using my Kolinsky hair round, kind of wiping off some of the excess water. And then I pick a space, it's about at least 1/4 of an inch allowance on each side. And that way, when I frame it, it's not going to cut off my signature. It's important to find a good brush to do this. This brush is very flexible and I can do really fine points with it. Oh, thank you, KM. I think we're done here. So thank you all for watching. Hopefully this live stream went a little smoother, and next time we're gonna try to figure out how to make this a little more interesting for you the whole way. Feel free to send me any feedback in the comments section or through email. Again, my email is HeatherIHN@gmail.com. Thank you all for watching.